Okay, I hope you enjoyed your break. Week 3 is upon us, so this term is not going to be around much longer, so what you must do quickly. Alright, the first reading selection on your list is Sweat, a short story about a woman, Delia, who has a strong and intense fear of snakes. And we find that out quite early when her husband, Sykes, drapes his whip over her back and makes her think that he's put a snake on her, scares her senseless. This is also very symbolic, the whip, because we do find out later that he is physically and emotionally abusive. Sykes is to Delia. So, very unhappy household. Delia is a washerwoman. She takes care of other people's laundry, and that's how she funds her household. And we find out that Sykes spends her money that she earns anyway on his mistress, Bertha. The other people that we hear from in this story are just the guys that sit on the porch on the corner store. You know, if you live in a small town, there's always that place where, you know, the men gather. And when Delia walked by one day, they were commenting on how she used to be pretty until, you know, Sykes basically beat her looks out of her, and how he's just a sorry human being. So that gave us some insight onto some other people's perspectives of what exactly was going on in that household. And then we have the fateful day that Sykes brings home the rattlesnake, probably just to goad his wife and to intimidate her even further. And she comes home to find that the snake has gotten out, and she's terrified. But he goes in to find the snake, and he gets bitten. So she just lets him die. So I definitely think the snake is an important character in this story. Not only is he a character, it's a very vivid image, and it's also terribly symbolic too of your human character in Sykes. The novel that you had to read, The House on Mango Street. The first story was set in the black community. This one is set in the Hispanic, the Latino community in Chicago. And the main character is a girl named Esperanza. And Esperanza in Spanish means hope. And you think, oh well, you know, she's going to break out. She's going to, you know, maybe marry outside of her class, you know, get a scholarship, do something great. And in fact, what happens to her is actually quite the opposite. She, at the beginning of the story, is very young. She has not reached puberty yet. She's got friends across the street, Rachel and Lucy, and then her sister, and they just kind of hang out and do girl things. They jump rope and just, they're little girls. And then the second half of this year, that chronicles the year that she's 12 and 13, second half of this year she's more sexually aware. She's hit puberty. She makes a friend named Sally, which is ultimately a problem for her because Sally, even though she's quite young, she's the same age as Esperanza, is sexually aware and experienced, and she opens Esperanza's eyes to this whole new world of boys and intimacy, and she ditches Esperanza basically. And when Esperanza is alone, she is assaulted. She's sexually assaulted by a group of young men. So the whole hope thing is, you know, a little bit ironic and misleading there, because you think that she's going to overcome her surroundings, and you know, possibly she does. She's still quite young when the novel ends, but she admits at the end that she will never ever really be able to get away from Mango Street because of all of the memories that she's got there. Barn Burning, another Faulkner. We have here Colonel Sartoris, Snopes. Sardi is what he's called. He is the son of Abner Snopes, who is a no-account lowlife arsonist, basically. You know, when my parents were growing up, the Snopes probably would have been referred to as poor white trash. That's the terminology that probably Faulkner wanted you to think of when he wrote this family. He always was in trouble with the law, serial arsonist, burned one barn. Sardi lied in the trial, saying no, he didn't do it, and then he got in trouble for not cleaning up a rug for his next landlord, like he should have. And they were in trial again, and Sardi was confused, and he said, but he didn't burn the barn. And so that kind of confused the people because they didn't know anything about that. And so Sardi was just denying the wrong thing. So he really kind of got his dad in trouble in more ways than one. And when his dad went home to get the kerosene and the fire starting supplies, Sardi ran to Mr. Desmain's home, that was the landlord, and said, barn, and that's it, and just warned them that their barn was about to go up in smoke. And in doing so, he basically signed his dad's death warrant, because when they found Abner at the barn, they shot him. So we've got, again, a strong, violent character, male character, a weak female character who is just bent and shamed for years of having to run from her criminal husband's repercussions of his activities, and just, you know, she just has no spirit left whatsoever. So we've had black, we've had Latino, we've had low class whites, and now the next one is everyday use, and that goes back to the black community. Somewhere in rural Georgia, we can figure, because the older daughter is sent, Dee, her African name I'm not even going to attempt, was sent to school in Augusta. So we can assume that they live somewhere in rural Georgia, and Mama is the narrator of the story. And she and Maggie live together in the family home. Well, Maggie was scarred badly in a house fire when she was little, almost killed, and so she's very shy, as probably anyone would be who has to live with deep, painful, visible scars. And this story chronicles a visit from Dee, the older sister, who sees herself as very worldly, very cosmopolitan, very sophisticated, because she got to leave the country to go to school, and you know, she's got all these ideas about her heritage, and she's dating a man that Hakeem, who is a black Muslim, so also very cosmopolitan, and she's got very interesting ideas about what her mother needs to feel about her heritage. And her mother has actually very strong feelings about her own heritage, and Dee's asking for quilts from the grandparents, and her mother's like, no, you can't have them. Maggie's going to get them. She's already been promised them. And Dee accuses her of having no concept of her historical significance. But you know, you're left with a feeling that it's actually Mama who really does appreciate her own personal family history. Maybe not the history of Africa as a whole, but her own personal family history. You get the feeling that she's got a deep appreciation for that. Now, my enduring question about this is, did Dee set the fire that almost killed Maggie? Because we're told that she hated Maggie, and I find it maybe too big a coincidence that Maggie is the one who's almost killed in the fire. So it's just food for thought. The Yellow Wallpaper. Wow, this is one of my all-time favorite stories. This is by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and it's the story of a woman who's just given birth, and she's not feeling well. So her husband, who is a physician, takes her to a country home about 3 miles from the nearest village, so she's quite secluded. And he says, okay, you can convalesce, you can rest here, and you can snap out of it. Because, you know, for even up until like the 1980s, people just called postpartum depression the baby blues, and you were just supposed to get over it. Well, they didn't really see it as the mental illness that it really can be, and didn't treat it appropriately, because it is full-fledged clinical depression. And if it's left untreated, obviously it can progress into something much more serious, which is what has happened to our new young mother here. And you have to read it probably a couple of times to pick up on that. You know, she talks about the baby a little bit, but not very much, because she's not really allowed to see the baby. So the baby's kind of a side